Hi, my name is Maureen Armour, and welcome to my session on cross-curricular coding. Just going to move myself over into this bottom corner here so I'm as little in the way as possible. And in the interest of time, I'm going to go fairly quickly. I am coming to you today from Nova Scotia, Canada, so thank you for joining me, and hopefully you'll find something useful in this session. So, I'm going to start with a quick introduction, go over some curricular connections, talk about the robots and resources that I use in my class, and give you a few ideas for lessons for primary to 6th classrooms, plus French as a second language or other second language courses. So for future reference, when I say primary, you might call it kindergarten, but it's whatever you call that very first year of school. And so the focus of this today is going to be elementary, like I said, P to 6. So, like I said, my name is Maureen Armour. I'm a classroom teacher. I'm teaching grade 4 and core French this year. I've taught in different capacities, grades primary through 6, both in English, French immersion, and core French. And I do have a Bachelor of Education from St. FX, and I'm currently doing an MED from them as well. If you want to get in touch with me, I recommend connecting with me on Twitter here, Madame Armour. And you can check out my website as well. I'm going to try and get a little more reliable on updating that. I am a Logics ambassador, so if you're in Canada, check out Logics Academy. You'll definitely find some useful stuff there. And let's just carry on in the interest of time. I've already recorded the session once and had to start over because it went too long, and yeah, anyways, carry on. So, curricular connections. So my thing is that coding should not just be its standalone subject. In the Nova Scotia curriculum, in the primary to 3 and 4 to 6 curriculum guides, it does have its own section. It does have its own outcomes and expectations. However, it's much more beneficial for your students to integrate it into subject areas other than just in tech, because it's tech integration. So you should be using it in all of your subject areas because it does help to engage your learners, but it helps them with other skills that are really useful and transferable to other situations like critical thinking, building resilience. I normally have my students working in small groups or partners, so they're working on communication and taking turns and problem solving together, lots of sequencing. They get to be creative, and of course, there will be a little bit of frustration probably at some point, and so they get to build resilience and learning how to work through mistakes and how to learn from mistakes and pay close attention to those details to figure it out. So lots of great transferable skills. So when I look at the different subject areas that I have to cover in my class, I can find a way to use a robot to enhance any of those areas. And so when I'm looking at all of these different areas, what I'm seeing are a variety of ways that I can take robots or coding, that I can engage my learners, but also that I can add another layer to their learning and to their engagement with the topic we're learning on. Down here in the bottom, you can't really see it. It says creating with a variety of materials, and it talks a bit about creating costumes or scenery or props if you're making a movie or a scene with the robots. And that is specific to robots. Doesn't work quite as well if you're using an online coding platform. But there's lots and lots of different ways to use coding across the curriculum. As you can see, these are all things that I've either done or had planned to do, but then didn't get to when we had the COVID school shutdowns last year. So I'm going to go over a few of these ideas for each subject area and give you specific lesson ideas and activities that you can do as part of your units in these topic areas. So when I get started with coding in the classroom, people often say, that's great, you know how to code, that's fine, you could just teach it to the kids, but how do I get started? So this is my 4-step process that I use no matter what grade level I'm teaching. So the first thing I do is code the teacher, which is literally having the kids code me. So I tell them I'm going to behave like one of my robots. And usually the example I give is the B-bot, because the B-bot is the most basic one. So just moving forward, moving backwards, being able to turn, being able to pause and to stop. And so I use basic arrows for both for movement and for turning, and I have the students code me from point A to point B in the class. So what I do is I explain to them that the robot is very, very literal. You have to make sure that your code explicitly tells the robot what to do, or else it's not going to work correctly. And so generally when we do this, we do end up seeing that I have to walk into desks or over desks, or right into the wall because we're missing a piece of coding or something like that. And so the students not only find it funny, but it gives them a really great way to see why it's so essential that we really pay close attention to our code, and that if something doesn't work out the way that we want it to, that we can go back and figure out where the mistake is so that we can correct it. And so generally I use the blocks, like the tiles on the floor in the classroom, and I use those as my blocks. And so then that way we can trace back the steps and correct any issues as they show up. So then we transition to in writing our pictures. So again, usually using the symbols, arrows, keep it nice and simple. But you can also cut out and use images of blocks of code, or like the buttons off of the Bbot, whatever you want to be using. If you're using a Dash robot, you're going to want to cut out some little code blocks, and then line them up so that students can practice working with that. And then usually what I do after we've used the pictures or the writing is I move on to either the Bbot or the Dash and let the students get some hand-on practice coding them. And then once they've sort of mastered those core basic skills, I start assigning centers and integrated lessons and activities and projects where the students are able to use those core basic skills with the robots to help show their learning or engage with a topic that we've been learning about in class. So I'm going to pop next over to some robots and resources that I like to use in the class. So I am going to talk mostly about robots in this presentation, and I'm going to focus on one robot specifically for the most part. But to get started, these are the three that I use the most. So there is, like I said, the Bbot, which again I like just because it's very simple and the buttons are built right into it, so you don't need external devices for it. It comes with a charging cord. You just plug it in and charge it. It's pretty it's a good basic starter robot, and it comes with some mats you can use. You can buy more mats, but if you have the transparent one, I often just use cue cards and popsicle sticks, and I customize whatever I want with them. The next step up is the Dash robot. Little more functionality and a little yeah, there's a lot more that you can do with the Dash robot in comparison to the Bbot, but it is a little bit more complicated too. But you do have the option to drive it or to use block codes to move it, and to use it with a variety of apps too, so that's nice. And then if you're looking for something a little bit more sophisticated, maybe a little bit more complicated, there is the Mbot. Almost dropped him there. Luckily, they're all pretty durable. The nice thing about the Mbot is you actually get to put it together. So I let my coding club put it together last year. They built all of the robots together. It uses very similar code blocks, just like Dash does. It uses an M-block system. And so if you've taught them Dash, you can teach them Mbot pretty easily. Other than robots, I do love using Scratch. Code.org is great. And then last year, I found out about something called a microbit from Brilliant Labs. So if you're in Atlantic Canada, you should look up Brilliant Labs for sure. And microbits are really neat. So if you haven't heard of them, also, you should Google microbits. But for now, we're going to focus on my favorite robot. Don't tell the Bbot or the Dash, or, well, don't tell the Bbot, rather, that the Dash is my favorite, or the Mbot. But the thing is, the Dash is my favorite for a number of reasons, and I'm going to explain why. And it really, the biggest thing is versatility. The Dash robot is really, really, really easy to use from primary to 6 because it comes with a variety of free apps. So like I said, you can drive it like a remote control sort of car, or you can use block coding, or you can use, there's apps that have little games to help kids practice their skills. There's lots and lots of ways to use it. But the other thing too is with the Dash, you can also use online software now, the Class Connect system, where students can actually practice their basic coding skills, and you can see their progress online. So if you are in a remote learning situation, you can still teach basic coding concepts using that program, and it's really handy. One of my favorite features is that you can easily record your voice on the Dash, and you're going to see that in a lot of my lesson activities, it says, or you can record your voice on Dash as a nice little add-on, especially for French second language. That's very helpful for students to be able to record their voice. Again, there's a range of functionality for all ages, and also students really connect with the Dash. They think of it like a pet. They really form like a close relationship almost with it. They're like definitely like more of an attachment. They love all of the robots, but for some reason, like Dash's personality just really like shines for kids, and so I do tend to be more drawn to using that, and the students do as well, and so that's what I'm going to focus on today specifically. So here's a look at that Class Connect as well. So you can see here when your students, you set up their accounts and you can see their progress as they go through the different lessons, and you can see how they're doing. So that's nice. And again, it's using the same type of block coding, very similar to the apps that you use for Dash. And so, like I said, Dash has a number of apps, different functionality, different sort of complexity. So you can use Wonder sort of for games, and you can use Go for using Dash, but I tend to use Blockly the most rather. You can use the Path app as well, and Xylo. On that note as well, cool accessories. He has his xylophone and he has a launcher. I didn't get to use those. That was the next stage last year, and we didn't get to use them. So in some of the lesson ideas that I provide, I will mention you could do this with the launcher as well, which is what we were going to try last year because I just got my own launchers. Oh, and there's a pen accessory too, and I'll mention that as well as we go on. But there's so many different things you can do, and you can build onto him with Lego, and Dashes are just really versatile. So that's why we're going to focus on that. So again, in the interest of time, I'm going to very quickly go through a couple of lesson ideas for you. Now, these lesson ideas are, they're designed for small groups or working with a partner. Please respect whatever COVID restrictions are in place for your school. But if you're able to, Dashes are very easy to sanitize, and so are iPads. If you are able to work in a small group or with a partner, it's very beneficial working on those communication skills as well, but you can of course change that as you need to. And the lessons that I'm describing, you can adapt them however you want to meet different student needs, but also you can swap them out for subject areas. Some of them have the same kind of basic core, but I'm using them in different subject areas. And yeah, again, based on core basic skills. So what I like to do is at the beginning of the year, I front load my skills. I usually do this with my tech and with my art, so that then I can assign different projects for students throughout the years using those skills they developed at the beginning of the year. And also, I love to give them a choice board and say, you can show me your learning, whatever works best for you, and that helps to validate the different learning styles in the classroom. A lot of students do want to pick the robot way to show their learning, so that just shows that it works and that they find it interesting and engaging. So let's look at some ideas. So in art class, if you're working on colors, whether it's lower elementary or second language class, you can either drive or code Dash to the right location, or you could use the launcher, but you'd have to make like a color base. So I would do this either with Lego or clay, or have the students create something like paintings or drawings, or you could have your students, especially in lower elementary, go kind of on like a color hunt and collect a variety of objects of the same color and set them up in an area, and then you either draw out of a popsicle stick or on a slideshow, however you want, color name, and that's where Dash needs to go. You can have them record the color names using their own voices on Dash. You can also have them coding Dash to change colors, the lights on Dash to change colors depending on which color is selected as well. You can also, this was a project we were supposed to do last year but didn't get to because of schools being shut down, which was creating an art gallery and coding Dash to be the tour guide. So we were doing a series of artist studies, or at least we were going to, and students were going to be creating pieces of art inspired by local artists, and then they were going to be coding Dash to give a tour of the different art pieces. And so this could be done into a video or done in person. And Dash would, say a couple of things like this is the name of the artist or something interesting about the art. And then they would go to the next one and you could do a whole gallery with that. In math, something I've done quite a bit with robots is practicing numbers or math facts and either coding or driving Dash to the correct answer. So what I would do is set up a variety of either numbers in the room that correspond with questions you have written on popsicle sticks, a slideshow, index cards, whatever you want. Students draw it. So let's say the equation says 5 times 5, and then they need to drive Dash to the correct answer. Or you can do it the opposite way, or you could do the missing digits, place value, anything at all. You can really, really adapt this basic core lesson idea to whatever subject area you're doing. And it's reinforcing the coding skills and the driving skills, whichever, depending on the grade level, is more appropriate. But it also is having them use the information that they have in math, whether it's a calculation or something you want them to memorize, and having them use it in a different context, but then to also use the coding at the same time. Another fun thing you could do with the pen attachment or without it is to practice geometry by having Dash either coded or driven into the shapes that you're working on. So you could do squares, triangles, circles, whatever you want, and Dash can either be coded or, again, driven to make that shape. This would be one where you're going to build resilience. And so it would be really good to have a conversation with them afterwards. What didn't work? What did work? How did you problem solve this? How did you figure it out? What does that tell you about the shape when you did this, et cetera, et cetera? So you can have a really good discussion with that as well. In science class, you can code Dash to show the life cycle of a plant or animal. And so this is an opportunity, again, where you could, of course, build a costume or accessories and other props for Dash and scenes as well. And you can have it in a video as well. I'm big on the making movies, I guess. And you can have Dash go through the different stages of the life cycle, or you could have them already set up and have them travel to the correct stations, but have students either record their own voice or narrate a video showing information about the different stages of the life cycle. There's lots of opportunities there as well. Another one we were going to do last year was animal habitats and have Dash visit the animal habitats in a video using a green screen. We didn't get to that, but that's another one. That's a little bonus. And another topic from science that works really well for Dash is building structures. So you could use Dash to test a variety of structures, like a bridge that he has to cross, a tower that Dash needs to hold on his Lego attachment. So the Lego attaches onto Dash's head, and so you build it onto there. It's like a little tray. You build a tower, and then it has to be like Dash can drive with the tower on the tray for X amount of distance. You give them the criteria, they build it. You can make tables that need to hold something and Dash needs to drive under. With the bridge and with the table idea, you might want to have something else as the initial tester that maybe weighs the same as Dash or is the same size, something that's a little less expensive than Dash, because you don't want Dash falling from a large distance, but it also kind of raises the stakes for students, right? So there's lots of other things you can do there. And any STEAM challenges, like there's so many different types of STEAM challenges that you can use with Dash. So very versatile in that way. Language arts, one of my favorite things to use Dash for is to show the sequence of events in a story. So you can either print off your own pictures or have students create representations of the parts of the story, move them around, and again, drive or code Dash to the correct locations, or you could label them on different buckets and have Dash launch them. Just make sure that they go to the correct, in the correct order. And, you can, again, record your voice on Dash if you want with that. Another one is creating scripts and doing videos or scenes with Dash, like do like a little play. And students can create their own plays or movies using Dash and the accessories as well. This is a great way to engage students in topics that they might not be super excited about, or in any topic really, because it's a fun way to use Dash and to get creative. So off the top of my head, really could be used well in health for things like social emotional learning topics, bullying and nutrition. Any topic though, I always say the challenge is tell me what you're working on and I'll find a way for you to use a robot in it. So any topic you can make a scene out of with Dash. They could record it on their iPad, and then they could edit it using iMovie. They could even have a movie day where they get to show all of their movies in class together. You can make a whole thing out of it. It really is quite fun, and kids really are enjoying that in class. For social studies, you could use Dash to show the sequence of events for a historical event or a timeline, and so you can either build a timeline rather and have Dash drive down it, or coded down it to say different things about the timeline, or different pictures and representations again. Another opportunity for recording your voice on Dash. Another one too that would be really fun that has a lot of art outcomes attached to would be to build a little costume for this little robot. You know, they can put whatever they want on Dash. Dash is gender neutral, so Dash can wear whatever you want, and Dash can be dressed up to show how clothing has changed rather from other eras, or like over time, or specific eras, or whatever you want to do with that. But that can be a lot of fun. And then they can record their voice on Dash going down the runway, or just drive or code Dash going down the runway rather. And you can again make it into a movie if you want, or just do it live in class. And then French second language. So one of the main things that I use Dash for is practicing new vocabulary and sentence structures. And so yes, you can again record your voice on the Dash, which is key for core French. We do the neuro-linguistic approach. So everything starts with oral language first. So what I would do is either have the recording, like practice recording your voice on the Dash, but also coding or driving Dash to the correct picture when we are learning sentence structures or vocabulary, and have them reading it aloud to each other, saying it to each other, and then getting Dash to go to the correct location, and then having them repeating back the sentence structure or vocabulary. And then there's a more complicated project here that we were supposed to do last year. We got 2/3 of the way through, and I was very disappointed we didn't finish, so I can't wait to try it this year, which is making your own movies in a second language. And so we were doing food and drink names and ordering food in a restaurant. And so students had to write their own script. They had to use the sentence structures and vocabularies that we had learned and practiced in class, and they had to write their own script and film their own Roboresto movie using the Dash robots and iMovie. So the students built little trays out of Lego that attached to the sides of Dash head, and they had to build the food as well. So I gave them just a variety, whatever art supplies we had in the class, and they could pick whatever they want and create the food. And so one of the Dashes would be the server, the other was the customer. They greet each other. They had a short little conversation, would have to order their food, and then the server would have to leave and come back and deliver the food. We got all of the scripts written. The students were all making their food, and then we went on lockdown. And so it was really depressing when I went back into the classroom and saw all of their hard work, and we didn't get to make it into the movies. But this year, fingers are crossed, we're getting those videos done. Again, connect with me on Twitter. I love sharing student work on there. So hopefully there will be some Roborestos happening this year, and we're going to get the whole way through, knock on wood, for that one. So in the interest of time, I'm going to cut it off there. I'm trying to get really to the point here, limited to 30 minutes. So if you have any questions, or if you have any ideas that you'd like to share with me, I love collaborating, and I'm keen to talk with you guys in person online about ideas or questions you might have for lessons. So again, if you have Twitter, connect with me, Madame Armour on Twitter. And if you have a subject area or a topic and you'd really like to incorporate robots but just don't know how to get started or don't know what to do, get in touch with me. I'll see if I can come up with some ideas with you. We can brainstorm. Or if you have a really good idea, or if you've tried something in your class that I didn't mention that you think I might be interested in, I love sharing, so get in touch. Yeah, and I'll just say thank you so much for coming. I hope that you found at least something useful or interesting in this presentation that you can take back and use in your own classroom. And yeah, thanks for coming, and have a great rest of the day.